G'day and welcome again to another Campfire Project discussion. Today I have with me, first of all, Michael Lauria. How are you, Michael?
I'm good, thank you, Alan. It's good to be back.
It's always good to have you here. And also Nathan Segal over there in Mexico. How are you, Nathan?
Doing well, thank you.
We've had both of you on together in a chat before, so I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with it today. But one of the things we were thinking about was the power of writing, being able to write a book and the therapy that's in that as well. And well, why do some people write books? So if you'd like to hit us off, Michael, I know that you've just finished writing a book recently, Excalibur, which is it's a gem.
Oh, good stuff, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Here it is here. I just happen to have a copy.
Excellent. Right on the table downstairs.
I'll show you again. I just had it lying around. What a journey. Seriously, like it took me 3 months from end to end. So I decided I wanted to write a book for years, and I just did not procrastinate, and I didn't write one because I didn't think that I could, and didn't think I had anything to offer. And then late last year, as we always do when we move into a new calendar year, I decided, right, this is the year I'm going to set the goal. I'm going to write a book this year. And then I procrastinated for another couple of weeks, and I thought, no, I've got to actually get it out this year. I want to do it. So I set a goal of releasing it on the 1st of May, and I thought, wow, that's a short timeline, but I'm sure I'll figure this out. And then funnily enough, Nathan and I spoke because Nathan was doing some stuff around helping people write books. And one of the insights that I got from Nathan, which I'd seen online, but I don't think it really stuck. And when I spoke with Nathan, it did stick. And that was the importance of doing a mind map and an outline. And so what I did is I bought this massive whiteboard, these 2 massive whiteboards. And they are probably half a wall, just a normal bedroom, half a wall each. That's how big these are. And one of them I actually used to map out the process that a man goes through over his life. And then I thought about how to actually liken that to a process that we know of, and that is about forging a sword, because a sword is a symbol of power and a symbol of strength and responsibility and all of that. And then, and that's how Forging Excalibur came about, because then I set the intention to write the book, and I set aside some time every day for 3 weeks. It was 3 hours a day for 3 weeks, 7 days a week. And I sat down and I wrote it out, and I went off the outline and the map that I put up on the whiteboard, and I kept on referring back to it all the time. And it was such a process. Wow, what a process over 3 weeks. Far out. And then it was about cover design, and it was about where do I publish it? How do I publish it? So big learning process, but everyone can do it. If I can do it, anyone can do it. Especially if you've got some experience in whatever it is that you're writing about, or you've got a story, or you've walked a path, or you've got a message, or there's something that you have done that is perhaps not significant, but maybe different to what most people do. And you've got some insights and awarenesses around that you can share with others. And one of mine my biggest learning over the years was how to come from a broken shell of an unconscious man in my mid-20s to, more of a fully embodied, masculine man now, who has overcome adversity and who has a reasonably high level of self-awareness, I think anyway, and has gotten to a point where he just feels fulfilled and purposeful and happy and with some direction in life as well. And so that's pretty much what it's about. It helps take men on a journey of what it means to become a man, and then integrate and embody those aspects of the masculine that we all think in today's society are toxic, or we're being told that they're toxic.
Yeah, well, when we write a book, we quite often, you write a book, obviously you wanted to help other people.
Yeah, that's the intention.
But what did it mean to you, to you as a person yourself, not just to other people that you were going to write it for?
What did it mean for me? It was a very therapeutic process. So there was even a point that I got to about a week into actually writing the book, no matter how much mind mapping and outlining and everything I did, I got about a week in and I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. I just can't. How do I fill out a book? How do I put enough into a book? There's not enough in me. And that for me was another stage of growth that I had to go through, internal growth, to have the self-belief that I could get everything from out of here and in here onto the pages of the book. And it worked. And it worked. So for me, it was a process of growth, and it was a very therapeutic process. It was also very cathartic. And there were awarenesses and insights that I came to myself. I started to feel a sense of gratitude, a higher sense of gratitude for the adversity that I had gone through during life, as opposed to, you know, being more in the, I guess, the place of a victim, where I'd gone through all of this stuff and there was a divorce and I didn't get to see my kids and couldn't hold down a job, and I went through depression and I contemplated suicide and all that sort of stuff. And it was almost like there was a small part of me that was still in that place of being a victim. And I think this process of writing this book and getting it out helped me to embody a greater sense of gratitude and thankfulness for the adversity, because it had gotten me to a point where I can help others and then write a book which has actually helped others, which is, you know, exactly the purpose.
Yeah. Now, Nathan, I know that you never had the intention of ever being a writer, but you became one, and you've written a lot of articles over the years. So for you, how do you find writing? What does it mean to you?
Well, I mean, I'd have to be paraphrasing my mentor. He basically said that writing is a passport. If you know how to write, that's one thing. But I remember doing some marketing for that, because like I would run into a lot of writers who had quite an entitlement attitude that the writing is everything, they would be discovered, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote what they call a squeeze page, if you're familiar with internet marketing. And squeeze page is just it's just a page design that would fit on the screen of your monitor with a call to action, with a hard-hitting headline, hopefully, a few bullet points, and so on. And the sales letter that I wrote, the squeeze page read, if you make any of these 3 freelance writing mistakes, you can kiss your career goodbye. And that really stirred up a lot of people. Some people became very angry with me, but I was saying to them, look, you can be the greatest writer in the world, but if you don't know how to market, bye-bye. The likelihood of you succeeding as a writer is extremely low, if not nothing. And so I harped on the writing and also some of the various mistakes that people make, such as going on to, what do they call them, the content mills and the bidding sites. And it's the worst thing that you could do. And again, I said, you know, you need to know how to market yourself. And if you don't know, good luck. But I was very lucky at the beginning of where I came from. As you were saying, Alan, I never intended to become a writer. I became a writer as a result of getting fired from a job. And I didn't have any prospects. And 2 weeks later, my cousin came to visit. And by the way, that same cousin offered me the writing course 6 months before, but I turned him down because I thought I was going to be buried in paper. And I didn't like that because, you know, I like my space. And as it turns out, I was right, at least for a while, about getting buried in paper. But when he came back and he offered it to me again, I had no prospects. So, and literally, quote, back against the wall. So I said, okay. And he just told me what to do, and I just followed it. Now, looking back on it, you know, and I look at these different writers and the problems they've got, I didn't have any of those problems. I had none of those limiting beliefs. I had none of those issues whatsoever, zero. My mentor told me what to do, and I just did it. And I just followed his directions. And sure, I made mistakes and major screw-ups. But I also became successful at it very quickly because I didn't fight him, and I didn't think I knew more than he did. I just did what he told me to do, and it worked.
Yeah, so I'm picking up a few things. It's like we write a book because we have a need to formulate what's going on in our own mind, but get it out onto paper. then
Well,
there's that fear of putting it on paper as well. But then once we've done it, well, now we want to share it, and there's going to be a problem there, which is in the marketing. So we've got a number of different cycles we're going to go through when we're writing a book. And Michael, you would have really felt those with the short time frame that you had to write your book.
I did, and I just did what I would normally do and what I've seen other people do, not necessarily with books, but other things that they're promoting or marketing or selling, where they take people on a journey and they help to, and they share the journey of writing a book, for instance, in this case, with their audience as they're writing the book. And so I just did that same thing. So I would post up quotes and I'd tell people about what I was doing and what process I was at and take photos and post that. And about a month before, I created a little promotional video thing in iMovie, which people loved. It's cool. That's cool. And I enjoyed the process of that. And then I organised a book launch, an online book launch. I'm about to do a physical one here in Melbourne too. Yeah, and that is probably now looking back in retrospect, the promotion and marketing is the most difficult part, not writing the book. It's not writing the book, because the book comes from the inside out. That's easy. When you have the awareness to be able to do that, and you can articulate reasonably well, writing a book is not all that difficult. It just takes time, and you need to have a bit of structure and framework around it. It is the actually then getting it out to market, getting people to read it and buy it, that is the most difficult thing. And whilst I also never really intended to become a writer. This is not going to be my thing. I'm not going to be a perpetual author for the rest of my life. Coaching is my love and my passion. I will write more books because I have more to share, especially in relationships too, and more about men. But maybe next time I have to get, I don't know, better at marketing and promotion, because sold quite a few books, and that's a good thing. But it's never been about selling books. It's been about helping people. But then I realised that in order to help the most amount of people possible, you have to get good at marketing and promotion. Because how do people get to know about the book unless you do that?
Well, that's exactly right. You going to say, Nathan?
Just that there's so many different ways of doing it, and just with what I've been doing and learning about my own process. I mean, even with the book that I've got in mind, it's like one of the major mistakes that people make is that they say, oh, I'm going to create a bestseller and I'm going to live off the royalties. And I'm going,
no, it doesn't work like that, does it?
Pretty rarely. I remember encountering this one famous dude a while ago, same first name as me, but he was the guy who invented the MP3 player. And he was trying to reel me in with the idea, oh, you'll make tons of money off the royalties, but I want you to write it for free. And I remember what I said to him, which was not, very printable, but it's like, you must be joking. But he, like so many other people, didn't understand that the likelihood of, even if his book became a bestseller, for him to make the kind of money that he was talking about, it's like, sorry, mate, but you're dreaming. Unless you have some deal. Like the first book I wrote was called The Photoshop Companion. It was based on a whole bunch of tutorials I did over the years. But then I shopped it around and I found a software company to deal with. And so they said yes to this idea, and I rebranded a lot of my stuff to their content. They sold the book as a joint venture with their software. And I remember the time, I didn't think it through as to how much I could earn with it at all. But they were paying me a flat fee of like $10 for each book sold, which didn't sound like much. But then when they showed me the sales figures, I remember thinking, you're kidding, right? Until it went live. And when it went live, in 3 weeks, I made $16,900. Another time they ran it for 2 months, I made $54,500. But what I did and the amount that I earned is the exception to the rule. I did something entirely different. My book was not on Amazon. It wasn't there at all. It was sold on the back channel through a software company. And a lot of people think, oh, I got to get a bestseller on Amazon. It's got to be like this. And it's like, as I've been discovering, bestseller status really doesn't mean all that much. Yeah. And not only that, it's relatively easy to game the system so you can get a bestseller, but that doesn't mean that you have a success. You could get a bestseller and totally tank in terms of your target market.
Mm.
And what I'm all about is helping people become the go-to person, the trusted authority in your niche. And I was actually polling people about this because I was feeling like I don't have a bestseller despite the fact that I've been writing for years. But ironically, I wound up talking with a woman who used to work for a book promoter, like helping people write books, and she told me how to do it. And ironically, it was more or less what I had thought about as to how to do it, which is gaming the system.
I can honestly say,
I don't like that.
I can honestly say I'm very proud that I didn't do that. I was determined that if I was going to get a bestseller, it was going to be authentic and genuine. And so I listed in the self-help category on Amazon because it's a self-help book. And one other category, I can't remember now. I think it was, can't remember. But either way, I made sure that it was in men's health. I think it was men's health. Health was the other category. Sure. And I got to number 2, but I was proud of that because it was in a relevant category. I didn't put it in, cross stitch and whatever.
As I see it, the bestseller title, most of the people who have got one, and I've got one, the end result is you don't make any money out of them. You use them as a calling card. It's about credibility.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then why did we write the book in the first place? Anything that I write, it's all about wanting to help people. So it's not money from that side of it that I'm looking for. I've had a lot of people say to me, when am I going to write about my story? All the things I've written so far have been a little bit about my story, which was in the Game Changers, and the other one was The Face, which is a book on how to find the right career that matches your personalities, especially when you're a kid, leaving school. But to write my full story of my journey, that's one that's it comes from inside, as you said, Michael. It's all the stuff that's in your heart that you want to get out. And there's a lot of stuff there you need to get out. But what's the purpose of writing it? Is it to make money? Well, not really. It's more a case of being able to help people. It helps 2 people. As you found yourself, as you said, it was quite cathartic when you were writing it. It was bringing that out to help your own therapy, but also then to guide other people who are in a similar situation, who go, well, where's my future going? You're able to help them into that direction. So I think that's the main focus. It's not so much the marketing of or getting a number 1 bestseller. It's about how do I get that out to more people so that they can help them more so I can have that number 1 bestseller tag. And as you said, there's so much going on inside, because you and I have had a lot of talks I've talked to the other men as well. All the men that I've had on the panels and that have got so much inside, it's got to be a real issue in trying to get it onto paper, which is where, as you talked about, Nathan, the mind mapping it all out and having it all laid out properly. So you get it out, because it's just like a truck coming, or trying to get it through a small funnel. It just won't go through. You've got to break it up and get it into the right order.
There's that, but there's also another side to it. For some people, if they are not able to write it on paper, then what I would suggest is what I'm doing is interviewing people. Because if you're working with someone who's a skilled interviewer and who knows how to ask the right questions, and you create an environment where the person on the other end is feeling relaxed and comfortable, then it becomes relatively straightforward. So if you're trying to get it out yourself, sometimes it's just too difficult. And I understand that. It's like this one book I wrote a number of years ago. I didn't write it to make money. I didn't write it necessarily to help somebody. The reason I wrote it was to close a chapter in my life. And the book served that purpose. How many people buy it? I don't know. Haven't tried to track anything for it, but I knew that it would be useful to the right person, but I never tried to promote it. I didn't care, actually. So apologies about all the barking dogs in the background. I hope you can't hear too much of that.
A little bit, but it's not that loud. We're probably getting it louder at your end than we are here.
Oh, yeah.
But in that writing of the book, as you said, it's getting it out on paper. I find that recording is a really good way to do it. You're having a conversation with somebody, it comes out nice and easy. So any conversation you have, you should say to the friend who you're with, do you mind if I record this? Because it's going to be your story, and you can take it back and then have that transcribed. As I was advised earlier, if you're doing Facebook Lives or little videos, you can take the video and strip out the audio, and now you've got a podcast. And if you get transcribed, now you've got a blog. But if you do it in a structured order of all the different videos you do, you've pretty much got all those little blogs, but now you've got a book as well.
Yeah, you can do it that way. There's so many different ways of doing it. And one of the things that's come up for me recently is hybrid books, meaning that depending on the nature of the outline, part of it might come from interviewing, but quite often when I've been talking with people, they've got blog posts and articles and stuff that they've written, and I'm going, well, great. You know? And one other guy I've been working with, he doesn't really want me to interview him at all. He just wants to write it out and have me organize it and edit it. Michael, one tip I want to give you, and actually, if it's okay, I'd like to share my screen for a second. There's something I'd like to show you guys. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, give me a second here to...
While you're doing that, I'll share something else. So somebody said to me once, because I did say to them just recently that I'm going to write a relationship book at some point, and he said, you've had a relationship page up there for up on Facebook for about 7 or 8 years now, and there's lots of content on it. Have you thought about just going back and taking some of that content and just putting some meat on those bones and creating a book out of that? You know, people can do that too if they've got a business page or a coaching page or whatever they might have. Yeah,
it's actually incredibly easy to do that kind of thing, but you would still need the outline as a way of giving you direction, and then you would be able to decide whether the content you have is right or not. Anyway, just want to show this thing real quick. It's a program called Scrivener. It's designed for writers and script writers and so on. And what you're looking at here is a whole bunch of headings. These are the chapters of a book. Now, what makes this program really interesting and way better than MS Word is that if you look at these different headings, these are the chapter headings. Now, what makes it interesting is that each one of these is a file by itself, but they're all organized in this stack. Now, what's really cool about this, is if you say, well, I don't like where chapter 2 is located, I want to move it. So you just click and you drag. And so no matter where you go, and you just release the mouse button and boom, it gets moved to a new place. So when it comes time to doing the book, if you want to do more to it in terms of formatting and so on, you print it out as an RTF file, pop it into Word and do your formatting or wherever else you're using it there. But in terms of writing the book and the organization, makes your life light years easier.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. Because one of the things I found was whilst I had some structure and some framework for the book because it was following the forging process of a sword, it did get to a point where there were parts of the book where I had to move around a little bit.
Exactly.
Move around different parts, and that program makes it easy to do that.
It would make it super easy because, like I said, like every single heading, you write you would just write the heading inside Scrivener, and it automatically generates a title on the side. You just put your content in there and just write it, and just put it together, and then you just shift things around as you need to. You do an RTF file at the end, output it and put it into MS Word or whatever other program supports it. Do the formatting there for your book, and away you go.
I think what we're seeing here and what we're starting to realise, and definitely what I have, is that writing a book is actually not difficult. Most people have something that they can write about. They've got we all have this inherent innate wisdom within us, and if we can attribute some of those virtues that we already have within us into the process of writing a book and have a reasonably well-developed sense of self-belief that we can do so.
Yeah.
Everybody can write a book. It's actually not that difficult. It's just time-consuming.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say, because afterwards and over the years, I've discovered people with so many psychological blocks and obstacles. One of the ones that I encountered later as a working writer is getting started. Sometimes I just had a hell of a time. And then I discovered something by a woman by the name of Pema Chodron, who's a Buddhist Lama. And she was talking about getting really depressed even in a monastery. And she had a really simple way of dealing with it. And you get yourself one of those egg timers, a mechanical egg timer, not your phone that's cheating, but a mechanical egg timer where you literally have to set the thing and set it down.
Mm.
And she said, what you do is you take one of these things and you set it for 5 minutes and you put it down. And then you commit to only being and working on something for 5 minutes. Doesn't matter what it is. And when the timer goes off, set it again, do the same thing again. And from a writing perspective, I found that if I did it 3 or 4 times, the resistance would eventually, it would just melt away and I could get into it. And suggested that to many people over the years as a way of dissolving resistance. And it works every time, every time.
There's been a lot of chatter going on between the years.
Oh, yeah.
Self-doubt, things pulling us away, procrastination, and everything else.
Oh, everything. It's amazing what I've encountered. Like the excuses, like one guy said, well, I'm dyslexic, so I can't do it. I'm going, that's an excuse. I'm sorry. I mean, I had a friend who was dyslexic or is dyslexic who wrote all sorts of articles. And they're saying, well, you know, I can't do it because I'm dyslexic. Has it ever occurred to you that if you write an article and submit it to a magazine, you're going to have an editor?
Exactly.
And the editors take care of all that stuff. I mean, that's their job. You know, so, but the other thing is like some people, well, I've got an injury and I can't type. And I'm going, well, that's still not. That's still an excuse. If you really wanted it badly enough, you'd find a solution. Like there's one guy out there who I admire tremendously. His name is John Morrow. He's about 36 or something. He's in a wheelchair. He's essentially paralyzed from the neck down. He's also a multimillionaire. How did that happen? Well, because he didn't give up. And he gained access to certain software tools. One of them is a program called Dragon Naturally Speaking, which allows him to speak his book out through a microphone, get recorded on a page. He's got other people to help him, but he's been doing this for years. He's been writing blogs. He's become very well known in the marketplace, despite an enormous disability. And looking at, like, one of his websites is called unstoppable.me. You know, really amazing stuff. And I look at a guy like John Morris, like, well, sorry, I don't have an excuse. I can manufacture one, but it certainly isn't going to stand up to what you're dealing with. No way. If a guy like that can do it, what excuse do I have? Or anybody else for that matter?
Well, that's it. You know, if you've got a burning desire inside that, yes, I really want to share my story, but then those self-doubts come in, and that's when you go, oh, do people really want to hear this? Is it really that big compared to somebody else? Because we'll always hear about somebody who's got a bigger issue in their life than we've got. So if that was the case, there'd only be one person ever writing a book. Everyone else won't see themselves good enough to do it because of that one person who they all see to be worse off than them. But it's a case of, if you've got that feeling inside, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to, run with this today, talking about writing, which is not normally the line that we would take with the Campfire Project. But it really is, because there's a lot of men out there who have got a lot going on inside, who have got a story inside themselves, and where they might be a little bit apprehensive about sitting by the campfire and sharing it with other men. By putting on paper, you always know that you can throw that piece of paper away, or you can delete the file off your computer.
Sure.
But at least having done it, it allows you to get your thoughts focused and get it out. Then you can look at it and go, hey, I really do have a story that's worth sharing.
And here's the good part about that. Yeah, and here's the good part about the process of writing a book, because the version that's out there now of Forging Excalibur is very different from the first draft. The structure is the same. There's a lot of stuff that's still in there, but there's stuff that I took out. And it was so therapeutic for me, because I just got everything out on my Word document, right? And I knew that what I was getting out, I could just smash it all out on the keyboard, and it wouldn't necessarily all be read by people, right? And so it's a very, very cathartic, therapeutic process, and you can actually write it all out without any fear of judgment and get everything out onto a Word document or paper if that's what you want to do, without fear of judgment. And it's a very therapeutic process, because the great part about writing a book is the editing process. And what I did is I edited my own book before I sent it to an editor. And then I sent it to an editor, and the editor said, do you think that's a little bit too over-emotional? Do you think that's a bit too much? Do you think you're oversharing here? And that got me to look at it then from a different perspective and different eyes. And then I reworded a lot of stuff, because there was stuff around that I went through in my through my divorce that isn't in the book, that was in the first and second draft. And it was stuff that I went through with an organisation / movement about 2 or 3 years ago that I had in the book. And it got edited out, partly by me and partly by the editor suggesting a couple of things. And so the end result was something that I'm comfortable in lots of people reading, but it still gets the message out there, and the learnings and the lessons and the awarenesses and insights and a little bit of wisdom are in there, without that whole therapeutic process being there for the world to see.
Getting it out's important. But not necessarily that other people have to read all of it or hear all of it.
Yeah, and I still have. After I finished the first draft, before I edited anything, I went to Officeworks and I got it all printed out in the same size as I knew I was going to end up having the book. And I had it bound, and it's up there on my bookcase. And that's the first draft before anything got added or changed or altered or anything. So I've always got that, and that's my little therapeutic. That's my therapy. That was my therapy in writing this book. But that's not what everybody else. That's not the copy that everybody else has. So it's a good process for ourselves.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it. It's sharing, or sharing on paper first of all, or on a file, and that what's going on inside of you, and then being able to turn around and go, okay, now how do I put this out for other people to read it? So you've got the therapy yourself, then you've got the version that you know that is written in a way in which should help other people when they read it.
And it's funny because when you start, you're right, Alan, and when you start writing, it's like you step into flow very, very quickly. So when you just sit there and you start writing, I found that I did procrastinate for a little bit. And then once I started and I had a bit of structure to work with, it all just came out. The book is about nearly 160 pages, but I think it was nearly 200. It was just over 200 pages, actually. And so a lot of stuff got edited out, and that's just my crap that came out, right? That's the stuff, that 40-odd pages was stuff that just got edited out by me and at suggestions by the editor as well, and somebody that I had read it for me, a very close friend, and she suggested some things too. And so, yeah, fantastic cathartic therapeutic process of self-awareness and really going deep into the pain and the adversity. Yeah, it's a brilliant process. And then you just pick the stuff out there that you know is relevant for others that can help them. And that's what ends up being the final product. So if you're worried about sharing, if you want to write something, you want to write a book and you want to share with others and you want to help others, it doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be necessarily warts and all that goes out there to the public. So it's a good, editing is the most powerful part of the process, I think.
And that's the good thing about, because at the end of the day, and that if you've got one of these things like over my shoulder here, you can, if you've got paper, you can always turf it in there.
You could. You could.
But you know, as you said, it's getting it out first, putting your feelings out there, getting it out of your system first, and then being able to share what you feel should go to other people. But being able to do that for yourself first of all, because you can't help anybody else until you help yourself.
Correct.
So by going through that process, it's great therapy, as you said. And it's something that you don't have to share with anybody else. But then if you decide, okay, you want to then, yep, I really want this message, then you've got an editor who is there thinking about the end product. They're not making a judgment on what you've written in there. Yep. They're looking at it from the point of this is going to be a book. So again, you've got somebody who's not looking at you. If you're worried about somebody thinking, well, what do they think of me? You're not getting that at all. You're not getting it when you write it. And in the editing stage, after you've done your own edit, as you've said, the editor themselves are looking at the finished product. They're not thinking about judging you on what you've written. So it's great therapy all the way through, and it gives you a chance to grow and move through whatever's been holding you back.
Yeah, exactly. And the great thing about this in 2019 about writing a book is I did everything myself except for the editing. Except for the editing, I did everything myself, and that was writing the book, doing the initial editing, then it went off to an editor. I did the cover design. We've got so many resources available to us online in Facebook groups and programs, software, all this sort of stuff that we actually don't need someone at every step of the process to help us through every little aspect of writing a book and getting it out there, because, you know, I didn't know anything about writing a book until I started the process. And there's so many resources online that are free, and there's YouTube videos and there's Facebook groups that are specifically for writers and authors. And you can ask questions and get advice, and then you pick and choose the stuff that you want to listen to. And the idiots, you just ignore. And yeah, you know, if I can do it, that's my first book. And if I can do it, anyone can.
Yeah, well, as you said, as you're going out and looking at those resources that are online, your focus is outward from you as well. So there's therapy in that work as well.
Yeah, that's right. Because, and it's a very internal journey writing a book. So I can't tell you how therapeutic it is, and you become a different person just by the process of writing a book. You actually become a different person. You become someone different, a better version of yourself, and a better quality person as a result of writing a book. Because it all comes from inside out, and then it's not inside anymore.
Yeah. And as you said, it's in a structured order as well, especially as Nathan was talking about. It's nice and structured so that you can move things around. You can now see what's been going on inside of your head all over the place like this, and now have it structured in a flow that you can understand yourself. And in that, you go, now I know why I keep getting upset about things, or why I keep getting drawn back into stuff. You know, it's a great self-discovery process.
It certainly is. And you start to realise how messy it was up there. Because what comes out is a mess, and it's got to be restructured. So you go, wow, what was happening up there, I wonder?
You know, it's like I've had so many people say to me, I'd love to know what's going on in your head. I said, if you're going to go in there, wear your overcoat, a bunch of or a pair of wellies at the same time, because it's pretty messy. And
bring an umbrella. And some wet weather gear, hey? Yeah.
So when you get it all out onto the paper and everything else, it's solved all of that. You've cleared things out in your own mind. You've got that growth for yourself along the way. And at the same result, you've got something you share with others then as well. Yeah. So as you said, everybody on this planet has got a story to tell.
Yeah.
And that story may not seem as big as another person's, but it's a unique story. And that's the whole thing. We need to give more power to ourselves, or more credit to ourselves, and go, yeah, we have got something to share.
Exactly. And if what you do and if what you produce only helps one person as well as yourself, it's still worthwhile. It's definitely still worthwhile. And I've already achieved exactly what I wanted to achieve by writing Forging Excalibur, because I wanted to just help someone. And I know it's a foregone conclusion, because I've had so many people message me and send me emails, and the reviews that I read online for my book as well. I've helped a lot more than just one person, and made a difference in a lot more than just one person's life. And so already the objective has been achieved with Forging Excalibur, and now it just means that I can help more people.
Excellent. So Nathan, would you have any final words for the people who are listening in today on the power that they can get out of writing a book for themselves?
Well, one of the things that came up earlier that you were talking about, and it had to do with people disqualifying themselves, comparing themselves to others. One of them is, it's already been written, so I can't do that. And one of the things I learned early on in writing is something we call the slant. So if you encounter somebody who wrote a book like How to Build a House, well, you might write a different book, like the 7 things you must avoid when preparing the foundation of your house. The 7 things you need to know about how to setting up electrical in your house. The 10 things you must stay away from when working with contractors. You see, a lot of people, they make the assumption that when they see something out there, oh, it's been done. I can't do this. Why would anybody want to listen to me? And from the writing perspective, which I learned earlier on, you've got the writing slant. And if you start looking at it from a completely different perspective, then you'll realize that there's so many different avenues that you can explore that maybe somebody else hasn't done. And even if they have done it, like you could use a site like BuzzSumo, I think it's called, to check out titles and stuff, because a site like that would give you enormous, valuable information about titles that get a lot of traffic and so on. And that's the kind of stuff that you want when you write a book. You want to come up with a really catchy title, like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Great title, right? But one of the things about a title like that is that the reader already has an idea of what to expect. Why? Because there's 7 habits. Well, what are they? Look in the table of contents. Oh, cool. It's like a cheat sheet. Oh, I like that one. I want to read about that. So when you start thinking in different ways about how you're going to structure your writing, what you want to say, how you want to say it. I mean, the first step, if you've never written a book before, you have no idea, then the mind map is the first step. That's what my mentor gave to me. But I was really focused. I knew exactly what I wanted. And I took a deep dive into it. And I remember my mentor showing me a shelf full of software. And he said, you follow this, you'll probably do better than me. And I remember thinking that he was full of it. Fast forward 5 years, I was in the middle of a relationship breakup, and I had to get rid of the software I had. Well, in the basement, if you know how big a liquor store box is of bottles or whatever, I had 10 of them full of software. And, my mentor came to me at one point and he said, you're my number one protege. Yep. And it was kind of like, really? But it's just, a real key to this whole thing, like Michael, one thing that comes across, and you're similar to me in a very important way, you're a self-starter. It's really obvious. You took stuff and you ran with it, but many people can't. And some of the clients I'm working with, they can't do a mind map. They can't do an outline. I have to walk them through the whole thing. It's like, you're kidding, right? But they're not able to do it. They literally can't. They need to have somebody coaching them all the way through. And so it really depends on the person. And so these groups are useful to a point, but then people need help. A lot of them just can't do it on their own. Michael, you're an exception. Me as well, as I discovered. Most people aren't like that from what I am seeing. So it's kind of an interesting journey.
Yeah, I think some people want to write a book and other people can't be bothered.
Well, if they can't be bothered, end of discussion, it's no problem.
Yes, that's right. Not everybody wants to write a book, but for those who do, I keep on saying, if I did it, anybody can. I truly believe that. But I think there are layers that we have to uncover first within our own conscious mind before we get to the layer that says, yes, I can do this and I'm going to. And then once you get to that point, all the resources are there.
Yeah, the motivation has to be there. Sorry, the motivation has to be there, but more than that, it's they're willing to look at what's getting in your way. Like one of my colleagues, his name is Rick Hugendorf. He's a realtor in Victoria, where I come from. And he wanted to be an author, but he couldn't get past his blocks. And one day he made a decision, and he's a student of a woman by the name of Byron Katie. And she's got a method for working through problems. Well, he worked through it and he busted his butt. He did what he needed to do. And the end result was a book called What's Stopping You? And it's kind of cool. It's got a really funny graphic on the front. It's got a traffic light. And you know how the red, yellow, green, all the lights are green. It's a really cool graphic, but he talks about his process. He talks about what he did to get unstuck. And this is what the willingness has to be there. And one of the things I keep running into is people, like every excuse under the sun. Well, excuses are easy, but going through them is not.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, it's like mind maps. I always loved the idea. I've looked at mind maps and I've always thought, oh, they look fantastic, but I can't do one. And I finally started mucking around with one. Well, I've got one which is on an A3 size piece of paper, so a nice big one, and it's chock-a-block. It took me a long time to get there, but it's the same thing in everything. It's just starting. Yeah. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's like we're thinking, right, my story is one I really got to get out. I'd like to share it, but I don't think it's good enough. Yeah. It's always the thing where all the excuses and everything else are usually blocks to stop us moving forward. And the only way to do it, as I say, is action. You just start by doing something. It doesn't have to be big. This is the whole thing. When you looked at it and you started, Michael, you were looking at starting to write a book. You weren't already having the graphics and everything else finished and the finished product.
No, of course not.
You're starting at the beginning and you're going, right, it's that first dot on the piece of paper with drawing your mind map. And before that, the thoughts about it. So every stage is just a matter of get started and just go through.
There is another thing. I was hanging out in a group with a friend of mine from live streaming, and she was on this live stream and talking about some of her problems with procrastination, this and that. And I was just in the comments, typing, and I said to her, "Your problem is very simple to solve. You need an FTA person." And she just stopped in the middle of her talk. And she just looked at the comments and she said, "What's an FTA person?" And I said, "Foot to ass." And she burst out laughing. We've been great friends ever since. But she got it. She got it. And it was the type of environment where I could get away with saying something like that. And we've been good friends ever since then. But that's the other environment too. It's like if you're in some of these groups where these people are complaining, "Oh, I've got this obstacle." Well, I'll make you a bet, or I'll throw down a challenge. It's like one guy wanted to quit smoking, and this is another story. But he really wanted to quit smoking, and his friend, who just happened to be a hypnotherapist, said to him, "I'll make you a deal." And what was the deal? "Well, every time you smoke, you send me $100. Not much of a deterrent." But it just escalated until he got to the point. It's like, "Well, every time you light up, you send me $10,000. And it's like, you got to write this out and sign it." Well, the guy did. And he never smoked another cigarette again, ever. So stuff like that.
Yeah. Like you say, that's put to ask that you have somebody there who keeps you accountable. Well, that's what virtually you did, Michael, with a lot of the posts that you were putting out. You were telling people what you were doing. Yeah. So you really put yourself in a position where you're holding yourself accountable through everybody else, and therefore you couldn't back off.
Yeah.
Well, you could have.
That's the exact reason why I did it. That's the exact reason why I said on Facebook, and I did a post and I told everybody I was writing a book and this is what it was going to be about, and I was publishing on the 1st of May. And if I didn't publish on the 1st of May, I thought, what are people going to think?
Well,
there goes your credibility.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I had to do it, and I did, and I had it ready early, actually.
Yeah. But that's the key to a lot of this stuff is what you did is the accountability thing, holding your feet to the fire, and having all these people going, "So when's it coming? When's it coming? Well, when am I going to see? Can I see the cover? Can you give me an example?" All this stuff, and I'm sure you got some of that too.
Yeah, I did. That's what was happening. People were quite excited before it came out. Just because of the lead up to it.
And for the people who are listening to this, if that sounds a little bit daunting, just get one person who's, who you respect, who is, you value their opinion, and get them to hold you accountable on it. Have discussions with them so they can talk you through it. And while you're talking, record everything, as we've already said, so that you can pull some of that structure out of the audio that you've got, and realise you've got some direction there. You've also got your reminder of your commitment. So not only having it up on a whiteboard to remind you, it's also play that. If you've said to somebody and you've recorded it, I want you to hold me accountable to this, and this is what I'm going to do, then listen to that yourself and let that also hold you accountable. You don't have to put it out to the whole world if you're not at that level. If you feel that you need the world to keep you on track, then do that. But if you feel that that's a bit daunting, just find somebody who's close to you who you know that you're going to follow, who you're going to listen to if they say, hey, where are you up to? Have you done this yet?
And if anyone wants some advice or just to chat about it, I'm more than happy to talk to anyone. It was a wonderful process for me, and I'll be doing it again at least another couple of times. I'm more than happy to chat to anyone who wants to have a chat.
Well, I think that's probably a really good point to finish up on. And thank you very much for both being here, Michael and Nathan. It's been great to have your content again. And to everybody who's listening, I would recommend, yes, to understand the structure and what you go through and everything else, talk to Michael. And as far as putting it together, get in touch with Nathan as well, because the structure he's shown is on that, what did you call the program again?
Oh, well, there's Scrivener, which really helps you. Yeah, it really helps you organize the structure. But the other thing is the mind map, the outline, and beyond that is just, well, if somebody wants help with it, just to reach out and say, hey, how do I do this?
Excellent.
So, just a couple of pieces about this. I've been writing for over 20 years. I've been published over 1,000 times in magazines all over the world, and I've written 10 books. So there you go.
You had actually said on your Facebook Live this morning, Michael, you go and talk to somebody, because we've got lots of coaches out there. They're all over the place. But go and find somebody who's actually lived through it, who has actually experienced it, who has actually got some results in their life. Yes, and both of you men have done that. So you've had the experience of writing the book, and Nathan, you've got the structure and everything else, the advice on how to put together. So I'd recommend to everybody out there who's listening to this today, if you're thinking about writing a book, get in touch with both Michael and Nathan and have a chat. But again, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here again today.
Thanks, Alan.
Everybody else who's listening in, thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next Campfire Project. Bye-bye for now.